In this video, I'm taking a repurposed computer monitor, some wood that I had in the shop, and an old Raspberry Pi to create a family calendar and picture frame center for our kitchen. It's going to replace a whiteboard that we have that nobody keeps updated, and it's going to let us see at a glance our schedule, where people are and what they have to be doing, the weather, and it'll rotate family photos that everybody can share too. So stick around and let's see how I got this built. For the display, I'm going to use this old Asus 24-inch monitor. It's been sitting in the closet for 5 or 6 years now, gathering dust, and it's got the HDMI input I need. It'll also fit in the portrait orientation right where I need it to go. I just need to get this base off of here, and then we can figure out how we're going to make this work. And fortunately, this base removes with just 4 little Phillips head screws. I need to try and figure out how I'm going to mount this up. I know I'm going to build a frame around it, but my question is, do I build a frame that holds it in the case, or do I have to take it out of its case? That's what I'm going to try and figure out. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to repurpose this frame that I made for another project. It's just about the perfect size for this 24-inch monitor. It's way too tall. I'm going to cut it down, but I don't have to remake the frame. And then I'm going to use this 2.5-inch thick material. This is all oak, and this will let me build a frame that the monitor sits in front of. We'll have to come up with a way to clip it in from behind. And then that will mount into this oak frame, and then this whole thing will just be able to mount right on the wall, run the power cord out the bottom. I think that's going to work perfectly. So now I just need to get this knocked up into a rectangle so that the monitor will sit behind it. So I need to get some measurements and break this down. My conundrum is, how fancy do I get with this? Do I go for a rail and style assembly like you'd see on a cabinet door? Or do I miter this at 45, hoping that my skills are good enough that I can make this exactly the size that it needs to be to fit inside of the frame with no gaps? I don't really hate that. I don't know if I love it, but I'm kind of leaning towards this for ease of assembly, and I'm going to stain all of this probably fairly dark, which I think might hide some of the sins. I've got nice square stock. That will help quite a bit when it comes to getting this put together. And I'm going to use dowels to hold everything together. That'll give me nice alignment, and it'll make sure that the front is as flush as I can make it. So I think that will help. Now I just got to get these all cut so that the final dimension is the correct dimension. I am 15 and a hair over an eighth, which is what I want. And I should be 21 and a quarter. I did that wrong. It's supposed to be 26 and 5/8. Well, now I feel kind of stupid because I did not plan that out properly. But that's okay. How can we fix this? Let's figure that out. Yeah, that's not even going to work a little bit. That is way too short. Yep. I got to go back to the drawing board on this one, because not only is it way too short this way, I'm narrower than my screen is this way. But that's okay. I could adjust by cutting the sides shorter to essentially open it up. No, I can't even do that. I've completely messed this up. I've got to go back to the drawing board and figure out how I did such a dumb. Because this is a pretty colossal dumb. I'm not going to edit this out. I am going to show this massive screw up, and maybe you have been yelling at the screen this entire time because I was about to make a really dumb mistake. So good news, bad news. I don't have any more oak, which would be nice because oak is cheap. It would already match the frame, which is oak. I wouldn't have to waste maple. But I do have some maple left over from a project. And it's not particularly nice maple, just your bog standard maple. Doesn't have very much chatoyance, it's not bird's eye, just a piece of wood. So I am going to mill this to the correct dimensions. And I have enough length here that I can remake my frame. And I will probably double, triple, or maybe even quintuple check. And yes, I know I skipped over quadruple. Make sure that I don't do another dumb, because I don't think I have enough of this left to do it a third time. And at that point, I'm going back to the lumber store. I really don't want to go back to the lumber store. So let's get this milled up and try again. And just like that, I'm ready to make my frame for the second time out of a completely different wood. It'll all be fine. It'll look fine when it's all stained. It'll be fine. I thought ahead this time and I measured the width and the height of the screen, the actual display portion. It is 11 and 13/16 wide, and it is 20 and 15/16 high. So I also need to keep that in mind. I need a frame that both fits inside of this frame, but also is wide enough and tall enough that the screen shows through, or at least the vast majority of the screen. I could have like a tiny little bit covered, but I can't have it encroaching too much, because then the display will be covered up and it'll be wasted space. And I'm not sure yet if the software that I'm going to run can account for sort of cropping in. So I don't want to do that. So now I'm going to figure out what I need these dimensions to be so I can both fit inside of the eventual picture frame and give me the width I need for my display. Yeah, that's the problem. When this is 15 and an 1/8 inch wide, I only have a 10 and 3/16 opening, and I need it to be 11 and 13/16. So that is almost 2 inches. So these side pieces are much too wide. And I don't know about the top and bottom piece, because ideally I don't want it to be too weird from a perspective. I don't want these to be super skinny and the bottom ones to be nice and thick. I'm gonna have to fiddle with this a bit. And here's the second part of the problem. When my top and bottom pieces are far enough apart to fill the frame, I'm a little over 24 inches. So I'm gonna have really heavy bottom margins and really narrow top margins, which tells me that this probably needs to get cut down so it's not as tall, which I really don't want to do, because then that means I've got to remiter it, but it is what it is. I want to do this right, and I don't want it to look silly. And as it is now, I would have to have just like great big panels for the top and bottom, and I don't think that that would look good. All right, so these need to get a little narrower on the stiles. This needs to get a little shorter so that the rails will fill in the space just perfectly. So now, I guess I realize what I'm doing is I'm trying to control for 3 different variables. The first is the size of the screen. The second is this inner frame, which needs to fit the screen through the middle, and then the frame on the outside. And then the third variable is the frame itself. I think the way to do it, since the screen dimension is the dimension, the one I absolutely cannot change, I need to do my best on this frame to get the inner screen right, and then that informs me of what this frame height needs to be. I can make the frame shorter, I can't make it longer, but the problem is I can't make it wider. Ideally, I would make this frame just a little bit wider so that I don't have to cut these down, but I don't want to remake this, and I don't have the lumber right now to remake this. And again, I'm just trying to move this project forward. So that's what we're gonna do. We are gonna get this right for the screen, and then we'll figure out what this needs to be. I think I have this figured out. I am at 15 and an 1/8 wide, which is what I need to fit into my frame. And that gives me an 11 and 3/4, just a hair over 3/4 opening. And I measured it at 11 and 13/16. So that's fine. There might be a tiny little shadow edge of the screen that doesn't get revealed, but you're not gonna notice that maybe 1/16 of an inch, probably less than 1/16 of an inch. My next critical dimension is the height, and I need 20 and 15/16. So I have got the top of this contraption clamped so it doesn't move. And if I measure down, I am at 20 and 15/16 on both sides. That informs that I need to cut the bottom of the stiles right there. Just put a little mark on them. That also informs me that I'm gonna have to cut this down and I'm gonna have to put new miters on it, which I wish I didn't have to do that, but I've already got to cut this down because it is way too thick, so it's not the end of the world. So I need to get the stiles cut, and I need to get this doweled together. That should fit my screen, and then I will work on remaking the frame. Just a little setback. I think I've got it this time. I think second time was the charm. I think. You don't see any of the bezel. I mean, you can see it probably at that angle along the top just because of the angle, but once this is up on a wall, I think it'll be fine. And we're not covering any of the screen, or at least no substantial part of the screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put dowels in the four corners, and I'm gonna get this glued together, and then we'll tackle making that the right height because we'll need to size it down for this new dimension. I've got my dowel jig out, so now I just need to get some dowel holes in the four corners. I'm not really going for strength here, it's more alignment, and it'll make sure that the faces flush up really nicely. That is probably one of the secret strengths of dowels. Obviously you could use biscuits, you could use dominoes. I'm gonna use dowels. Honestly, I think for this, you could just clamp it together with a little bit of glue. I think that would be fine, but I want that extra alignment because I notice there's just a little bit of a warp in this frame, not very much, but those dowels will help me pull everything nice and flat. So I'm gonna throw some dowels in each of the four corners. And there we go. We have our frame. It is square in the corners. I'm gonna set this aside to dry while I figure out how I'm gonna cut the picture box down to hold our frame. Okay, I can make my cuts. That cut was for all the marbles because I don't have any more of this wood to remake it if I didn't do that right. So, fingers crossed, I did that right. So we're just gonna throw this together quickly here and see if we're in the ballpark. And hopefully we're not in a completely different zip code. So put all that together, and then moment of truth inside, top to bottom, needs to be 20 and 3/8. And it is 20 and 3/8. So now I'm gonna go get my frame. I'm gonna see if it fits in here. We're gonna all keep our fingers crossed. Just everybody who's watching this, cross your fingers for my poor dumb brain and the geometry of making all of this work. Okay, final moment of truth. Does this fit? Fits that way. So far, so good. Yep, I was so focused on this dimension That's what I cut this to, not this external dimension. What did I do wrong? 24 and 3/8, not 20. 24 and 3/8. Okay, dear viewers, it is here where I am feeling rather defeated. I'm gonna go dig through my pile of wood one more time. I'm gonna hope that I have something to save this sorry project. I really just wanted a quick and easy project. I wanted to get my smart screen built so I could put it in the house, so that the family could know what we were up to week. Apparently, this is the project that is going to beat me. Surprisingly, I had one last board of maple. Seems to be about the same quality that I made the frame out of. Nothing spectacular, just enough. Like literally, I have 2 pieces this long, 2 pieces this long. This is my offcut. 8 inches maybe, and it's all nasty and wouldn't be usable. I have overcut this by an inch or 2, just so that I have room to continue the Sisyphean task of trying to build a box. That should not be this difficult. And yet here we are, who knows how many minutes into this video, where I have made no substantial process. It's like I've never seen a wood tool before. Honestly, give a monkey a hammer and a saw, and I think it would be having better success. But we persevere. I am going to go get these cleaned up. These need to be jointed. They need to be run through the planer. Then I need to figure out how thick I want them to be. This one in particular has some nastiness down on this end, and this is too thick anyway. It's already about as thick as the wood that I was going to use, and I know I was going to make that a little bit narrower. So we are going to do all of that to this, hopefully through the magic of editing and me going and doing things off camera. The next cut will be me with 4 pieces cut and dry fit that my frame fits into. I am not willing to take that wager. I might bet against me if I were a betting person. You might want to go on Polymarket or one of those other websites and bet against me. I might go bet against me. I will be back. Dear viewer, I am back once again. I have not test fit this, so we get to experience together if it goes into this frame or not. Please send me good vibes. Okay, so it's a little loose side to side, but I can tighten that up. Oh. It fits. There's a tiny little gap along the short edge. I can take another blade width off of these 2 short pieces, and I think that that will tighten it up perfectly. And it fits top to bottom. I think with some sanding, we can get it to fit nice. That ordeal is over. I have left this a little long, hopefully, but I'm not sure exactly how deep I need it to be so that the monitor will sit in here. I'll have a little bit of a reveal, and I'll still have clearance behind everything because I do still have to get power to the monitor, which is just a power cable. I also have to be able to stuff a Raspberry Pi into the works to run the software to do the sort of calendar home center. But for now, this appears to have finally come together. This has been a trying little project. Shouldn't be this difficult to make 2 rectangles. Yet here we are. I need to figure out how short I want this to be. Obviously this is too tall, it's gonna stick off the wall way too much. I do have 2 3/8 inches to play with. So I think if I take 2 inches off, maybe that's too much. Maybe a 3/4 inch reveal? So then I would take 2 3/8 minus 3/4, That would be 1 5/8, 7/8, something like that. And that would give me a 3/4 inch reveal and let me put it up on the wall. Although the monitor is sitting on the table, and I don't want it touching the wall. So I may need to fiddle with that just a little bit. I'm probably going to do this the smarter way, considering all of the problems I had actually getting this frame built. And I'm going to use some spacer blocks. I'm going to use some 3/4 inch spacer blocks, and I'm going to flip the whole gubbins upside down. That would be working smarter. Maybe 3.5. Okay, I'm going to come down 1.5 inches. Take that off, that leaves me with 3.5. That gives me my 3/4 inch reveal on the front, and I still have plenty of room for the monitor. That should give me plenty of space to stash my Raspberry Pi back here. So off to the table saw, get that reset, and cut these down. This should give me just enough clearance to clear the wall. I've got maybe 1/8 inch, just a hair over 1/8 inch, and that should be exactly what I need. That still gives me plenty of room around the edges to fit in the Raspberry Pi. I think this will work just fine. I may have a problem with my plug. I'm gonna have an issue here. I'm realizing this in real time. If I put that in, that's sticking out. Womp womp, I didn't think about that, and I don't have any clearance. Even if I flush it up, I don't know if I have clearance. This is the project that just continues to give the last monitor, and I had this locked up in my brain. The power came in underneath. Wasn't going to be any issues with cables sticking up. This one, all of the cables come out of the back. And I've built this to fit this monitor. Odds are the other monitor is a different size and it's not gonna work. It's also much deeper because it's a much older monitor. And I'm pretty sure it's a smaller monitor. So, yeah. If we take our spacer blocks out, let's just see what happens if this is all flushed up proud. I'm just gonna play a game of what if. Does that give me enough room to make my connections? Maybe if I get a right angle power adapter. Oh, buddy. Or will a right angle power adapter work? Now, the next question is, do I have a right angle power adapter? I'm also curious if I'm gonna have the same issue with the HDMI. Neither problem is insurmountable, but once again, problems that I did not plan for. I don't want to remake this. I'm going to forge ahead. I'm going to go with the axiom that everything can be fixed in woodworking. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to go. It's square enough for what I need it to do. Just going to let it dry while I ponder my next steps in the project that just isn't going well at all. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna try and see if I can get the case off without destroying everything. It doesn't look like it's glued or ultrasonically welded shut. I think it might just be some clips. I'm gonna try and pop it off. This may be a horrible idea. We may be starting from scratch with a different monitor. I do have a backup victim, but I'm gonna see if this is something that just pop right off. All I'm doing is removing the outer bezel. Okay, I don't want to do that. Asked and answered. But it gives me an idea. Maybe I could cut into the casing along the well, what was the sides, but now along the bottom and the top. Because if there's a gap there, I could still do the same thing. I could cut some slots, and then I could come in with a 3D printed clip that screws into the back of the wood and just slots in there and cinches down. That might work. Might not work, but I'm gonna give that a try. Don't know if this is the best tool for the job, but it's the tool I've got. I haven't heard anything like crack yet. And I'm right on a clip. But I think that'll work. I think that'll give me something to bite on. And I got some good distance in there. I'm not anywhere close to electronics. Yeah, I think that's gonna work just fine. I'll just 3D print a couple of little clips. I have to make a couple of little clips, but yeah, that'll hold that monitor, because it's not very heavy. I mean, 5 pounds, 6 pounds? Yeah. All right, the butchery will continue. Well, that's probably all the butchery I'm doing, but it's just the general butchery, the project butchery, the malarkey, the mayhem, the project mayhem. The mayhem will continue until the project starts working right. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I do have to say, I've never used this before. This Dremel, I have a generic Dremel. This is an actual Dremel that my wife got. And they have this quick release system. Like, maybe I'm just late to the party. How cool is that? I have spent my whole life screwing on these little cutting discs, and this whole time, Dremel had something that you just pull that back, pop it in, twist. That's awesome. Continuing the saga of nothing wanting to work right. While I really like this 3/4 inch thick maple frame that I made, and it fits the monitor well, I don't have enough thickness on the top and sides to really give me a place to mount the body behind this frame and make it fit and hold all of the components. So I got some 1/2 inch oak because it was inexpensive, and I think it will hold the monitor a little bit better. And I'm going back to the original idea of using this frame that I made way back at the beginning and putting it on, and so it'll overlap a little bit, more like a traditional cabinet. It'll also hide the miter joints, which aren't exactly perfect. So I think that's gonna work out. It also gives me plenty of room in here to hold the monitor, hold all of the power cables, and make everything tucked together, all nice and neat to hang on the wall. I milled this up and put it together off camera. Nobody needs to see however many attempts that is. So now I'm gonna get this glued together and move on to cutting it to final size, fitting it up to the front, and hopefully getting the monitor mounted. I'm not gonna touch it. I've had so many problems with this project. Just gonna leave it here to dry. I'm mostly saying this to camera so I don't forget. My border around the outside is gonna be 25-30 seconds, or just a 30-second over 3/4 inch if you want to get specific. And I realize that that makes no sense to anybody outside of the United States who's watching this. I'm sorry we don't do metric. They tried when I was in school. They tried real hard. We got real close to converting to metric. But then here we are. 25-30 seconds of an inch. I printed these little clips on my 3D printer, insert close up here, and they will just slot right here into the top and bottom where I took my Dremel and I massacred this old monitor, and they fit within the line that I drew that gets my case nice and centered. I'll have to make sure that this monitor is exactly where I want it, but I still have enough clearance, and I'll just run some little screws in that will just penetrate about halfway through, maybe 3/4 of the way through this front face plywood, and that should hold the monitor nice and sturdy. And there is almost no gap. I'll bring a close-up over here to show this. There is almost no gap between holding the plastic and the bottom of the clip, so that will be a nice snug fit. To attach the face frame to the cabinet, I'm going to use these. They're not machine screws, they're definitely wood screws, but it's a flat cap screw. It's definitely not what I want to use, but it's what I have that's going to fit. And I'm going to drill some holes in some blocks, and I'll make little blocks that I can glue to the cabinet and then screw to the face frame once I get everything lined up exactly where I want it. So I've got an 11/64" drill bit. I'm just going to run some holes in my material to hold these little screws, which are probably not the right screws to use. And that's how I'm going to attach the cabinet body to the face frame. And here is how it will work. This should give me just enough to hold into my face frame. There, and those should hold the blocks in place until the glue dries, and then that'll give me something to screw down into in the face. Seems pretty sturdy. 1 down, 3 to go. Okay, here is the moment of truth to see if that mounting system both will hold it and is square and straight. Now, I won't be able to see this because I am lifting it up and I am behind it, but hopefully you, dear viewer, can see that this hasn't turned into a catastrophe. And the good news is, it seems to be holding pretty darn good. And from what I can see in the monitor, and from peeking my head around, it actually is reasonably square. So directionally, I'm pretty happy with this so far. My next question is, what do I want this to look like? And the answer is, I'm not 100% sure. So I went and grabbed some of the stains that I have on my shelf. I have a semi-transparent Jacobian. I have a classic black. And I have a semi-transparent true black. So I have got some sample pieces of wood. I'm going to throw some sample stain on them, and we are going to see if any of them speak to us. And by us, I mean me, and by me, I mean something that I think my wife will like to have in the house. And I know you're not supposed to use a shop towel to apply these. These are just tests. Settle down. Okay, so here is the semi-transparent true black, and don't know how well those will show up on camera. It definitely colors the wood a little bit. It's very transparent. I'm not in love with it. This is the classic black. Again, I don't know if this can is just old and bad, if this is what it's supposed to look like. You can kind of see some of the gray, sort of the cool colors in this maple sample, but for sure, I do not like this one. And then this is the Jacobian, and it gives a nice kind of warmth. I mean, it's oak. What are you gonna do? Like, oak looks like oak. I'm okay with that. I like how dark the maple goes, and especially since the cabinet will be back behind the oak panel, you won't really see it. So that's definitely the winner for this project. If you would have done something different, or if you have a different recommendation, leave a comment down below, because engagement, yo. And I am curious what other finishes I should consider in the future. All right, we're gonna let that dry until it's time to buff it off. I think it's 15 or 20 minutes. It's been about 24 hours and the stain is dry. I like the color. You can still see the wood grain, but it gives it a nice, deep, kind of warm color. I'm gonna use an oil finish to just top it off. It's gonna give me a nice sheen without leaving like a film finish that a polyurethane would. So I'm gonna get the finish on, and then we'll start to assemble the case. I'll let that dry the requisite amount of time, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Let that oil soak in, and then I'll come back and I'll buff it off with a nice clean microfiber rag, and then it should be ready to put together the cabinet, install our screen, and work on the Raspberry Pi that is going to run our sign software that is going to let me have the family calendar control center. Okay, I think I just need to leave this alone for a while. I need to let that oil kind of fully cure. Then we'll get the face frame attached to the cabinet. We'll get the TV or the computer monitor attached to the face frame. We'll hook up the Raspberry Pi. We'll do some testing, but it should work because I've already worked on the Raspberry Pi. And then we just got to get it installed in the house, plug it all in. To this point, I've kind of yada-yada'd over how I'm going to make the computer monitor actually a family home center and calendar. And to do that, I am using a Raspberry Pi. This is a Raspberry Pi 5, and I have a little micro HDMI to HDMI cable. And it's just on a little piece of 3D printed plastic that I have left over from an old project to make a Raspberry Pi cluster. So this is going to go in the back, and this is the sort of secret sauce. The monitor by itself isn't going to do anything. It needs something to drive it. And this is what I've chosen. I am using a project called Magic Mirror Squared, or Magic Mirror 2. It is a free open source project for digital signage. And I chose it because it's free. The downside is you configure everything through CSS, so cascading style sheets. I am not a CSS wizard. However, with AI tools, I was able to get Claude AI to help me build my CSS. And it gets me 95% of the way there, what I want it to do. I can connect it to the family's iCal calendar, as well as I have shared a photo album that this can connect to. And that is a shared photo album with our iCloud, so everybody can add their own favorite pictures, which just kind of rotate in the background. Just as a nice little touch. If you don't want to go more of the hardcore DIY geek mode, I have used also Raspberry Pis with a company called DAKboard. That's DAKboard.com. I'll put links in the bottom for all of this stuff. DAKboard is incredibly easy to use. It is a web configurable digital signage tool. The downside is it is not free. They do have a free plan, but it's pretty limited in what you can do. Certainly, if you have a Raspberry Pi, you can install DAKboard super easy, and you could play with the free version to see if that meets your needs. And if it does, then you're done. Like I said, very easy to configure, really nice web interface. But for what I would want it to do and the way I would want it to be configured, I would have to be on there, I think it's $5 a month on a 12-month contract. Not a ton of money, but the goal of this project is inexpensive, things that I already have, not investing ongoing recurring money. So like I said, I am using Magic Mirror Squared. If that is not your cup of tea, there's DAKboard. There are other digital signage platforms out there. I think DAKboard is one of the least expensive ones. And I use it at the office for our digital signage. It works great. Like no knocks against DAKboard other than there's a monthly fee. So this is how we're gonna drive the display. It's gonna show our calendar. It's gonna show rotating pictures. It's gonna show the weather. Does everything I want it to do. It's time to bring all the pieces together. I'm ready to put my monitor into the face frame, put the cabinet onto the back, and then get it all wired together. All right, we're just going to install these little clips again, and I have them pre-drilled, so we should be able to just drop them right back down where they were, and through the magic of 3D printing, they should be relatively interchangeable. And then the only trick is going to be getting the monitor lined up left and right in the frame so it is nice and centered. I should have some adjustability, and I can nudge it left and right. I'm going to lift it up, take a little peek, see how bad it is. It's actually not bad at all. Just need to nudge it to my left. I'm going to call that good. Go ahead and tighten it all the way down. And these little 3D printed clips have turned out to be plenty strong. I'm quite happy with that. I guess time will tell. If we get some plastic creep and deformation, we might be in for a rude awakening when they fail spectacularly. And Murphy's Law says that will happen at 3 o'clock in the morning and scare the living daylights out of everybody in the house. All right, that is clipped in nice and tight. Now I just need to get the cabinet body attached to the back, and I have to dig around and find my screws. I only pulled one out, so I'm gonna go do that. Got my screws, time to put the cabinet body on and make sure it still lines up roughly where I want it to. And visually it looks pretty good. Just get a couple of these screws in for registration purposes. And I've been having to think about how to mount this contraption on the wall. The wall where I need to mount it is brick, and I have these cool little brick clips that give me a hook. So I'm thinking I'm going to use a couple of eyelets and I'll attach them on the inside here, and I will string some piano wire across, or picture hanging wire, and then that will let me mount it nice and flush to the brick wall, and hopefully I don't have to drill into the brick wall. We've got a whiteboard hanging there now, and I realize this weighs considerably more than a whiteboard, but the whiteboard has been rock solid since we moved into the house. I am cautiously optimistic that the brick clip will do likewise. Like, this was supposed to be a weekend project, and it turned into anything but a weekend project. But what are you gonna do? That is sometimes the way projects go. I've got the cabinet connected to the face. Everything seems to be in here nice and tight. I'm gonna figure out where my electronics go. I'm gonna use some VHB tape to attach my Raspberry Pi in here, get it all hooked together, turn it on, and make sure it works. All right, I've got to get all of this stuff in here and looking neat somehow, so I figure some zip ties and some VHB very high bond tape will somehow let me get this in here looking nice and neat. I am going to mount my Raspberry Pi right about here. I was hoping that I might have been able to use one of these VESA mounting holes, and I probably could, but this little bracket that I already had pre-printed doesn't fit across multiple ones, and it kind of gets a little wonky if I would just screw it into one. And I really don't want to design another one. Like I said, this is reusing what I already had, so I think some VHB tape right there will do the trick. Plug it into the HDMI, and then I just have to get USB-C power into this, power into the monitor, and for that I have this handy dandy extension cord. But for now, I'm gonna get this mounted. There we go. Oh, yeah, that did the trick. All right, so we have the Raspberry Pi in. Now we need to figure out where our power strip is going to live. Well, you know what? We might just also VHB this right to the back of our monitor. We are gonna go right there. Nice. We need to plug in our power supply here and route the cable. So we'll just tidy that up a little bit. Well, I guess that'll just sit in here like that. That's not gonna hurt anything. And then we need to get our power supply for the Raspberry Pi. I'm gonna grab a zip tie. This will come under here and should plug in like that. Everything feels like it is nice and solid. Now let's test. Okay, it's the moment of truth. It definitely has some gravity in it. It's fairly heavy. I'm gonna guess 20 pounds, maybe 9.5 kilos, something like that. I've got my power, I've got my power cord. We're gonna plug it in. Now, I have not looked at this in a while, so it may pull up some sensitive family stuff. The screen may be blurred, but hopefully it will turn on. It will boot up and we will see a picture. I see my logo for the monitor. That's a good sign. I see the monitor powering up. That is also a good sign. I see my Raspberry Pi logo. So far, so good. Hopefully I got the orientation correct. This should be up. I see my Raspberry Pi desktop. Magic Mirror should load momentarily. There we go. We should have the current date and time. We should have the calendar loading, and eventually a picture should load in here. It just sort of rotates through family photos. I have a weekly calendar across the top, which is more of an abbreviated view. I have a calendar along the side, and then I have the weather at my location at the bottom. My Wi-Fi is a little suspicious in the shop right now. I have to troubleshoot that. I'm not sure why it's doing it, but I see a picture appeared. You may or may not be seeing this. I may blur it until I can verify I'm not giving away any personal information. But that is what it's supposed to do. This will hang in the kitchen, and it will be sort of a centerpiece of what's going on with the family, where we have to be, who's doing what. It will show the family calendar, all of that good stuff. We can put meal plans on there. We can see the weather at a glance. We'll see photos that we've taken and shared. It's way better than the whiteboard in that it's way more complicated than the whiteboard, but we are not good about keeping the whiteboard updated and current. So hopefully this will help us, because we seem to be reasonably good at keeping the family calendar updated and current. So now I just need to put the eyelets in the back to put my hanging wire in, and then we'll get this thing inside and hang it up. And here is the spot that the current whiteboard hangs, and I did not erase this. We haven't updated it in so long that I got it erased at some point in the past and just never got filled back in. This is where my digital display is gonna go. So I'm gonna get this down, we're gonna adjust this brick clip up here, figure out where we want it to be vertically, and get it hung up. I got it up on the wall. I didn't even have to move my brick clip, and it is really rock solid. I don't think that's going anywhere. I'm pretty pleased with the way this turned out. Hopefully my family feels the same way, and hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you like the kind of thing I do around here, I sure would appreciate a thumbs up, and maybe consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching.